Good morning. Jim Lurkey, owner of Safety Connections. And I welcome you to Ziaja New Employee Orientation. And this is a checklist that you will have a copy of. First and foremost, lockout, tagout. There's two kinds of employees. There's an affected and authorized. Authorized are those that actually perform lockout, tagout. Affected is anyone that doesn't perform lockout, tagout that could be affected. Bottom line with affected employees, it's hands off. No touching, no cutting it off, no tampering with any lock or tag. Number two, safety data sheets. Where are they located? They're located just outside into the shop, available to you at any time. And what you need to know regarding chemicals is everything you need to know is in a safety data sheet. And it's your right to know. So whether it is a company name, trade name, telephone number, first aid, personal protective equipment, how to handle, how to store, how to dispose of, hazardous spill, everything you need to know. Next, first aid supplies are available throughout the facility. Emergency action plans. Number one, if there's an emergency, obviously talk to a supervisor, someone in charge on any kind of a medical condition. From a fire standpoint, always go out the nearest exit, go around, stay away from the building, and meet out in the front by the flag. If it's a tornado, you simply go it's in the shop. I want to try to make sure it's next to the tool room. So you got to make absolutely certain you know where that is. Hazardous spill. Always make sure we notify the supervisor or person in charge immediately of a spill. Because number one, we got to make sure the employee is protected, all right, and is safe. Two, we don't want it going down the drain, inside a plant, and outside, we don't want it seeping into the ground. Next, bomb threat. Normally, everyone's got phones. So therefore, if we got phones, one of the things we want to do is make absolutely certain we listen. When we're done listening and they hang up, call 911 immediately. And then notify everyone, especially your supervisor or boss, and evacuate like you would a fire. When authorities arrive, they are the ones in charge. Next, harassment. There's absolutely zero tolerance for any bullying, name calling, cussing, whether it's in a sexual manner or otherwise, there's no tolerance for it. Next, violence in the workplace. There's zero tolerance, whether it's physical or verbal. Physical means pushing, shoving. If you ever have that happen, what I encourage everyone is if you're on the outside looking in, coaching and trying to talk someone out of it's one thing. Don't put yourself in the middle of it. And if any hesitation before it escalates, call 911. From a verbal standpoint, a verbal threat is anything and everything that someone makes a comment, I'm going to get you, or you're going to pay for this. Those are uncalled for, unacceptable. And that's where we have zero tolerance. Then we move on. Accident reporting, ones that are required immediately. And there's no exceptions. All right? If we can't follow the rules, automatic flags are going to go up. All right? And it'll be investigated. My company used to do loss control for insurance companies. And automatic flags go up if we don't follow the procedures. It's a win-win because you notify the supervisor, and in return, the supervisor company can take the corrective action so nothing worse happens to you or others. Next, safety glasses are required. And there's no exception to that. A sturdy Composite shoe required. Hearing protection voluntary. And understand when putting hearing protection in, all right, pull your ear up and back, seat your plug. And the last thing you do is remove your index finger. Okay? When not in use, keep them clean, put them in a baggie, but need to keep them clean. Safety glasses, when taking off safety glasses, always lean forward, glasses away and down from you. Keep them clean so you don't get stuff in your eyes. Very important. Lift truck, only authorized, those that have been trained are authorized to drive. Hoist, got to be trained. Anything from chains and slings, that's called a pre-use inspection. Any chain that's got cracks, splits, tears type stuff in it. It's got to have the tag on so the capacity is readable. And anything deformed, including the hook or the spring, it's got to be taken out and a tag put on for maintenance or simply taken out of service. A sling, again, pre-use inspection. There's something engraved into the sling, which is called, got to be able to read it, the capacity, and never use a sling around hot stuff, material, because that could burn through. When you inspect, make sure we can read the capacity, make also sure there's no tears, stretching, or you see the reddish, orangish threads coming through. If that's the case, they got to be torn up and thrown away. Proper lifting. Lifting back and head straight as possible, 1 foot forward, center of gravity. When you lift, always lift with your legs, not your back, and always keep your arms close to your body when lifting. If in doubt, that's why we have equipment, forklifts, and so on, hand jacks to be able to do that. So keep that in mind. No jewelry. Can't get caught in machines. That's an absolute must. Guarding. Anything has a guard. Guard's got to remain on. Any guard that's damaged, we got to notify our supervisor immediately. Fall protection. If at any time we're up above we're going off of a ladder and we're 4 feet or higher, fall protection and training is required. Anything we grab or use, pre-shift inspections are required, such as cords, electrical cords, okay? And talking about electrical, if a switch is broke, the cover on an outlet's broke, there's cracks in a cord, or one of the 3 prongs are missing, including the grounding, okay? We got to notify our supervisor and take it out of service. Face shields required if ever grinding. Everyone should know where the primary, secondary exits are, and for that matter, all exits. And if there's a fire, always go out your nearest, safest exit. How are things communicated with fire and tornado? It's through speaker system and or verbally. What must you know about subcontractors? They need to follow the same rules that we follow. If in doubt, we must always ask. No deviation from that. Training is required on all jobs. If ever in doubt and we don't know what we're doing, we must, no questions asked, ask first. Use of knives. Grab a sheet of paper, and when we're using any kind of knife, all right, it's always cutting away from you. Never leave the knife on the edge of a table, and always retract it when not in use. Second opinion policy. Second opinion policy is this. It's when there's a difference of opinion between an employee and a supervisor, or simply 2 employees. When and if that happens, it's required to get another opinion from another management person, or if they feel the need for us to be involved, we would gladly be involved as well. So keep that in mind. No retaliation, or if that were to happen, the supervisor or person in charge is subject to discipline. Next, safeties and condition of employment. All these rules and guidelines we went through, their condition of employment. And it's not uncommon any place. Okay, so keep that in mind, if you will. Grinding wheels, the toe guards on a grinder must be within an 1/8 inch, because on the top is a quarter, bottom's an 1/8. And so that's just a point of mention to you. Everyone needs to be accountable and responsible, and that is why there is a discipline program in place. Stretching. We have a handout. These are the slight stretching things that we can do during the course of the day before your shift. I encourage that, and I just encourage that for us to do that. It is, again, a good way to avoid an injury. How do we communicate? There's a handout. I like the third star down, where it talks about how we treat others in a caring, kind, asking, helping way. So please remember that. Arc flash. Arc flash, in a nutshell, the bottom line is there's no one allowed to go into an electrical panel and take that cover off that goes around those breakers. Only a qualified, certified electrician is allowed to do so. Exit locations, always make sure you know where they're located. Cost of an accident, there's going to be a handout. But you'll see, and it's off of the website. It's an OSHA website, and they're middle of the road. But you might find it alarming to see these numbers, like a $15,000 and some odd claim comes up to, with all cost, $1 million, just over $1 million. And so it's about sharing and helping people to understand the cost of any kind of an accident if they were to happen. Next, we covered hazardous spill, bloodborne pathogens. One thing, if it's very minor and minuscule, and you do the cleaning using disinfectant, and you control that yourself. The other thing is, if it involves more than one employee, all right, we've got to be reporting that to a supervisor or person in charge, because we're required to use the cleanup and a control plan, which means that there's a certain way that we have to dispose of that. So keep that in mind. Safety meetings, we normally meet every month, and that is a requirement. If ever loading or unloading a trailer, chalk's got to be in place. Safety goal. Your goal, company goal, the way we come to work's the way we go home. Nothing less. So keep that in mind. Our choices are critical. Near-miss reporting, critical. If for any reason there is a near-miss, something that happened, no injury attached, we want those reported in order to take the corrective action, change process, or do more training so it don't happen again to you or to someone else. Fire extinguisher, I like using the word PASS, P-A-S-S. What it stands for is pull the pin, aim at the base of the fire 6 to 8 feet away, squeeze the handle, and sweep at the base of the fire. If it's inside the plant, all right, always have your back to the exit, so you got a means of egress. If you're outside, you always want the wind at your back. And always remember, don't fight a fire if you're in doubt that you can fight it in the first place. Okay, keep that in mind. Hand tools, power tools, you name it. Don't know how to use them. We got to make sure we do before we use them on a regular basis. Ladder safety. Few points that we need to know about ladders. Number one, 3 points of contact up and down a ladder. Always must do what's called a pre-use inspection. We're looking at the rungs, we're looking at the feet, we're looking at every part, the frame of the ladder. Make sure there's no dents or nothing's deformed. And also that the capacity label is on a ladder, because they vary from ladder to ladder. Never carry anything up a ladder, all right, because we have to have 3 points of contact. Step ladders, stay always off the top 2 steps. If it's an extension ladder, always stay off of the top 3 steps. And if it's an overhang over the edge line, it must be a minimum of 3 feet over that edge line, minimum. A guideline for weightlifting, 50 pounds is what we use. It's just a guideline. We know lifting varies person to person. But if we're in doubt, we should be getting help, letting somebody know before an accident happens. Moving objects. We must, in all situations, stay out of harm's way of moving objects. No deviation from that. Walking, working surfaces, everyone must understand that they can be uneven. There can be cracks in the floor. There could be oil or water or grease. And if that happens, our requirement is we got to clean it up immediately because we cannot have slips, trips, and falls. That's no different than going up and down a ladder. Our feet got to be clean and clear. So keep that in mind. Be aware of your surroundings at all times. Next, OSHA fines. Sometimes I like sharing this because a lot of times people don't understand it, but it affects directly everybody. Fines today, and I'm going to give you a copy of that, and I'm going to give you a separate message on the key items for all of us to be aware, and that's going to include the OSHA fines. But in this case, in the orientation, you'll actually get a handout on the actual cost. But for an example, a willful today can cost per violation up to $156,259, if that tells you anything. And me being a business owner, I can tell you, we can't write it off. So it is vital and it is critical. So please keep that in mind. If you're unsure, we must always talk to a person in charge. Seat belts, anything that has a seat belt, even including if we're driving a vehicle, company vehicle, it's required. Maintenance is to be completed only by a maintenance person. Always follow the procedures as outlined. If in doubt, don't operate. Ergonomics, try to always keep your hands and forearms as straight as you can. Switch off the little things that can make a difference. All right? Bending, lifting, twisting, turning. Keep all those things in mind. If there happens to be a doctor-treated case, all right, it's got to be reported immediately. And we have a thing that's called restricted duty or alternate duty, where we will keep an employee working if at all possible. Employee assistance program, if you got personal issues, I do one-on-one support. So if that's ever needed, by all means, feel free to reach me at 920-912-7233. Corrective action, supervisor must be notified or a person in charge. Our number one priority is safety, no deviating. Simply, safety is a priority. Disposing of cigarette butts located by employee entrance, and there's no exception to that rule. And the last thing to keep in mind is COVID. Relating to COVID, what you need to know is we follow CDC guidelines. All right, we're sick, we stay home. You need to be tested to verify you have it or not. There's test kits available. That's the only way to really prove that. Other things we can do is wash our hands more often than not. Use sanitizer. Or the other thing is, suggested is distance when you can, 6 feet or more. The little things we can all do to help ourselves. That is the message on new employee orientation. You will get a copy of the checklist. And when I come to the facility, I will sign off as well and date it, which I ask you to do. And then I'll give you a copy and I'll meet briefly with you and have some interaction to go through any questions that you may still have available, having some time to think about it since you went through this. Glad to meet you. Remember, be safe in anything and everything you do. And if ever any questions, always ask first. Thank you.